Alma School for Humanity. New Human Being, New World. A series of articles, lectures, film and podcasts that touches on current affairs from the high knowledge perspective of the laws of creation. First lecture for Alma School for Humanity students: Biblical Stories as Codes for Deciphering the Reality of the World Today. Part 1. Introduction of the current global state and the codes of Genesis. Part 2. The Code of the Tower of Babel. Part 3. The Codes of Sodom and Gomorrah. Part 4. The Codes of Exodus and Summary. Welcome to the first lecture in the series A New Human Being, A New World by Alma School for Humanity. Hi, I'm Chagit Rabbi and I'm speaking to you from the land of Israel. The first lecture in this series deals with some of the most well-known biblical stories, which are not merely historical stories, but are mainly codes. Code means a pattern or a key to understanding the life of the individual, the nation, and the whole of humanity. Deciphering and understanding these codes shed light on the events that have been taking place all over the world in the last 2.5 years and have affected all of us. The COVID-19 virus, and it doesn't matter at the moment who is responsible for its appearance, changed the global reality and also divided humanity into 3 main groups, comprising of 3 levels of spiritual consciousness. The first group, and the largest of all, is of the sleepers. The sleepers believe that the world before COVID was normal and want to return to this normalcy as soon as possible. They are the ones who happily light up for the vaccines and even thank science and Big Pharma for allowing them to return to their daily routine. In terms of spiritual consciousness, these are people who are almost on the verge of death, and waking them up from their deep slumber is not an easy task, because the state of the world and the state of humanity is not at all normal, and nothing is going to return to what it was. The second group is the awakened. These people who are spread all over the world have realized that actually COVID has succeeded in testing positive everyone who is plagued with serious corruption, the governments of the world and the elites. In the opinion of the awakened, the propaganda of lies of the last 2.5 years has been so prominent and obvious that every scientist, doctor or citizen with any integrity must recognize it and oppose it. Those who stand with this group often also speak about globalism, the New World Order, and Agenda 2130, whose purpose is to establish a one-world government which will exert total control over the entire world population. In view of this malicious plan, the members of this group participate in demonstrations, protest on social media, and try in every possible way to wake up the sleepers, whom they call sheep, calling for a rebellion against the Matrix institution and thus prevent realization of the evil plan. The sleeper, on the other hand, call the group of the awakened conspirators. The group of the awakened is right about the fatal condition of humanity. But since their point of view is of the earthly and the material, their spiritual consciousness does not perceive the actual reason for this state and therefore also the actual solution. The third group is the cold ones. And this very small group, there are even fewer people who possess the complete high knowledge and the ability to zoom out and offer a top-to-bottom, heaven-to-earth perspective on everything that is currently happening. This lecture is dedicated to an explanation from this angle by deciphering the codes of some of the most well-known biblical stories. The codes of Genesis. As I mentioned, code means a pattern or a key to understanding the life of the individual, the nation, and the whole of humanity. There are stories in the Bible that combine historical reality and code, but the story of the Garden of Eden is all code. Therefore, those who read the biblical stories as tales that are supposed to describe only historical facts can reach mistaken conclusions, such as the claim of many intellectuals that the story of Genesis is untrue because scientifically the universe could not have been created in 6 days. The Code of the Tree of Knowledge. As we all know, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden were given the privilege and the blessing to enjoy the fruit of all the trees, but they were warned by God not to approach or taste from the fruit of one tree, the tree of knowledge.
You shall not eat from it, nor touch it, lest you die. Genesis 3:3.
For those who ask, why is this prohibition necessary? Why is there good and evil? The explanation is simple. The development of the human spirit in the material world takes place through free will. In every moment in life, we make a choice. And this choice is what actually allows us to mature and to weave our own destiny. Adam and Eve, symbolizing the first human spirits that were incarnated into the material world, receives the instruction for proper development and with it also warning. According to the Creator's will, proper development means allowing the spirit to lead, while the intellect only assumes the role of an executor. The tree of knowledge symbolizes the intellect, and whoever tastes from it disrupts the right order because it places the intellect above the spirit, which immediately reduces one's ability to perceive, since the intellect has no ability to grasp what lies beyond time and space. If we were to evolve according to the plan of creation, we'd have to listen to our spirit and let it lead. The spirit was supposed to be our engine and motivator. If you find the saying, listen to the spirit and let it lead, difficult to understand, just listen to your intuition, because intuition is the voice of the spirit. Let's take, for example, a scenario where a young woman goes out on a date and the first impression that her intuition conveys to her in the split second of meeting her date is unequivocal. Let him invite you to coffee as a courtesy and go home. This is not the man for you. But then it is very possible that her intellect will interfere, cloud the initial intuition, and disrupt making the right decision by whispering to her. But he's handsome, he's smart, he has a good job, you don't want to be left alone, etc. And then the woman would not stop at coffee. Another example of how the spirit should lead can be found in art. True artists, whether in the field of music, visual arts, or literature, say that they sense the entirety of the work emanating all at once from the innermost place, after which they need hours, months, or even years to express it. The emanation originates from the spirit, while downloading it to the earthly dimension is the role of the intellect. Another example is that of dreams. The Bible says that Pharaoh had a dream, and once he woke up in the morning, he brought the whole kingdom to a halt until the dream was deciphered. This is because he knew, as people in ancient time knew, that dreams are a warning or a guidance from the spirit that often appears in the form of symbols. The one who can help decipher dreams and explain their symbolic meaning with the help of the intellect is the high spirit who follows the will of God, as was the case with Joseph. To sum up, eating from the tree of knowledge is a code for man's disconnection from his spirit and his transformation into an intellectual man. According to this explanation, being an intellectual is not a compliment, but rather somewhat of a disability, since because of it, we can no longer grasp the true meaning of our life. Trying to grasp the deep meaning of life with the help of the intellect is akin to trying to collect water with a strainer. The intellect is not a suitable tool to grasp things beyond the five senses. In other words, the intellectual man can no longer perceive that life here on earth is actually only a school for the development of his spirit, that everything does not begin and end here, and therefore there is no reason to fear death either, because the existence of the human spirit does not end with it. The intellect is a tool limited to time and space, and therefore it cannot grasp the existence of God, eternity, and infinity. The banishment from the Garden of Eden is also a code for man forgetting that his real home is paradise, from which he sets out to acquire experiences in the material world with the aim of returning home as a mature spirit. Imagine a seed that has all the potential to become a beautiful flower. For that to happen, first it needs to be sown in the ground, then it needs to receive sufficient water and sunlight, as well as weather a few storms. Similarly, our spirit seed is planted here on earth, and it requires several incarnations in different bodies in order to be born, then mature and grow through different life experiences, some of which nourish and bring joy, while others forge by dealing with difficulties and pain. The origin of all spirit seeds is paradise. We must understand that paradise isn't a physical place, but a code for the spiritual sphere, the origin of the human spirit. The original plan of creation was for each such seed to incarnate into a physical body, to reach the height of its development, to offer its unique contribution to creation, and then return to paradise as a conscious being that has fulfilled its journey. But because of the sin of the tree of knowledge, man has lost the ability to understand this plan, and with it also the ability to understand the true purpose for his existence. The cause of evil and chaos is also rooted in our eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge and being banished from paradise. This leads to material hedonism, which leads to moral corruption, which leads to sexual promiscuity, and finally leads to the collapse of society as a whole. This is what happened to the builders of the Tower of Babel and to the sinners of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is what happened to Atlantis, and this is what is happening right now in the world. And it happened and is happening because we as humanity don't follow the right path, the path of God's law of creation, which, by the way, are not related to any religion, but I will explain this in further lectures. The one who tempts Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge is the snake. The snake is a code name for Satan, or more precisely, Lucifer. He is the one who undermines the obligation to fulfill the divine commandment, first with a woman. And he knew very well why he should seduce her in particular. The woman is closer to the light because of her higher and more refined intuition. For this reason, the task of femininity is to serve as a bridge between the light and masculinity. That's why the snake knew that if he succeeded in the fall of woman, everything else would fall by itself. If we go back to our times, we can differentiate between people who surrendered to Lucifer out of fear and those who fight against his plan out of anger. Lucifer's tool for enslaving humanity and bringing destruction upon it is the intellect. Everyone who is at the head of the evil of the New World Order is actually his puppet. These are people who worship technology. They were able to develop chip and nanochip technology, digital tracking, virus engineering technology, and of course, upgraded vaccines. Their vision is an engineered human being, a cyborg, who sits in front of the computer all day and consumes genetically engineered food. A person who has artificial intelligence instead of wisdom of the heart. The Ministry of Health serves the big pharma companies and not public health. The education system is a suffocating system. It's not because of a lack of good people in the system, but rather that these are people who don't have sufficient power to resist the suffocation of the soul of the children who are sent to the school with the purpose of turning them into obedient citizens. They also lack the awareness and the ability to initiate the children to the meaning of life and their unique role in the world. The economic system is a system of slavery and servitude under the guise of a free market economy and a number of credit cards that give the illusion you can buy whatever you want. Politics and politicians all over the world, right and left wing, are corrupt. The media is not the watchdog of democracy, but an obedient poodle that carries out the brainwashing of the public. All religion will also be exposed in their lies. But not only the matrix system are revealed now. It is also all private relationships, such as marriages, and even everything that is hidden and hiding in each and every soul. All is revealed. Everything comes out into the light. The light radiations, which are becoming stronger and stronger, are illuminating all this now. The light does not rescue, as many mistakenly think, but simply illuminates and reveals everything that exists, and then allows each and every person to choose of his own free will. Therefore, anyone who refuses to see this and continues in his blindness to live his life within the system of the old world will experience intense pain when all these false systems collapse. Those whose lives are built within the matrix will experience great physical and mental difficulties because they don't have the internal resources. They don't have a strong spirit to deal with the collapse that is progressing. However, those who possess the high knowledge from top to bottom, from heaven to earth, will recognize, experience, and know that the collapse of the old world of lies will also be the opportunities to build a new world of truth. The sin of the tree of knowledge and the banishment from the Garden of Eden led humanity to worship the intellect and to betray God for thousands of years, whereas the new human being will be a human whose spirit leads the building of the world according to God's laws in creation.